I am the chair of the Indigent Defense Advisory Committee and the executive director of the Public Defender Association of Pennsylvania. I am so thrilled that we are here today for this project to finally launch, and it's amazing to see the support we have here in this room. When I was thinking about what to talk to you all about what you would care about, I first thought about like the statistics, the numbers, because there's lots of them, right? I thought about the 128 exonerations we've had in Pennsylvania, 128 wrongful convictions that have cost the state an estimated $780 million. I thought about the unequal spending that some counties spend on indigent defense as much as $30 per person per capita, and others as little as $3.20. But I don't think the numbers really capture what's happening on the ground. So I wanted to talk to you about a small western county that I visited recently. And this is the kind of place where you drive about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, you go over the bridge, you get into town, you see the ice cream shop and the bowling alley that have been in families for generations. You go to the diner, and it's one of those places that has the placemats with all the businesses on it. It's a place that has a lot of local pride, but the local support doesn't track down to its public defender office. I was there visiting its new chief defender. She was the third chief they had had in 12 months. The prior chief had resigned. He had had about a decade or so's worth of experience. He resigned because the caseloads were so big that he didn't think he could ethically fulfill his duties. When they hired this new chief, this was her first job as a lawyer out of law school. She'd never tried a case. She'd never handled an appeal. She'd never worked in a public defender office, and they had hired her to be chief. Her full experience in criminal defense had been as an intern in law school for a local attorney who did civil and criminal work, not even in the county she was hired to be chief in. I asked her about her caseload. She had one part-time lawyer working with her. She told me that their caseload was something between 550 to 600 cases. That's 550 to 600 people, right? People's lives. She couldn't tell me exactly how many cases they had because about a month before she got there was a flood in the office above them, and before she got in there, maintenance came in and took metal shovels and took all the sopping wet files and dumped them into rubber trash receptacles. They didn't have up-to-date case management software, so she does not exactly know how many cases they have. They're still trying to piece together. Even today, they keep the case logs on an Excel spreadsheet because they don't have enough people to log things into a case management software. That's what inadequate funding looks like on the ground. If you had a loved one, a family member, driving through that county who got arrested for a DUI or anything else, would you trust that that was adequate representation? I mean, we all know that the Constitution requires more, right? That the Constitution requires something other than someone with a legal degree to stand beside you while they bargain for the best sentence possible, right? It's not haggling for used cars. These are people's lives. Pennsylvanians deserve better. The Constitution requires more. That better, that more, starts today, and it starts with the Indigent Defense Advisory Committee. I am so grateful for the Shapiro-Davis administration. The governor ran on this, he kept his promise, and now this is becoming a reality. I'm grateful to all of the members of the General Assembly who've supported us. I'll mention just a few: Senator Lisa Baker, Senator Vince Hughes, Representative Nelson, Representative Miller, and of course Leader McClinton. Several members of our General Assembly are former public defenders. Without them, we couldn't be here for this good start, this down payment on better. I'm thankful for the members of the advisory committee who are here today to start this work. We're going to get stuff done. There is so much work to do. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Senator Art Haywood.
So, thank you, Governor Shapiro. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis, and all the members of this tremendous committee. I was fortunate to be appointed to this committee by Lita Costa, and thank you so much. I am so glad to serve. My background is not on the criminal side, but on the civil side, and I started my legal career at Community Legal Services, representing individuals who were facing mortgage foreclosure. And I had supervision, tremendous supervision as a young lawyer. I can't imagine taking on protecting someone's liberty with no experience. And so although this is the focus is the Indigent Defense Act, Governor, I do want to thank you for proposing $5 million for a legal aid system, which certainly needs that support. I also want to share that this legislation and this entire initiative is so fundamentally about protecting the inherent dignity of our neighbors. Our neighbors who will lose their liberty, but for having some decent, constitutionally required legal representation. And that's a dignity that can be lost when you have someone almost unrepresented in plea negotiations about whether they stay in jail or fight for their freedom. It is a dignity that can be lost not just in the plea negotiations, but in the quality of everyday legal representation, whether their liberty will be protected by someone who knows and has experience and the resources or not. So Senator Hughes was a champion for this legislation in the Senate. And I was asked also to speak on his behalf, since he has been a key leader for this legislation. And together we are glad that we have such a fantastic assembly of leaders to put the legislation into effect. Finally, I would just like to thank all of the public defenders who are here today. Whether a current or a former, whether a chief or not a chief, whether a receptionist, the public defender's offices across this Commonwealth deserve our admiration and respect, and hopefully we can make good on that in this committee. Thank you. I would now like to turn over to my good friend and colleague, and you may not know my neighbor, he lives 3 blocks from me, Representative Napoleon Nelson.
This afternoon, Pennsylvania's Indigent Defense Advisory Committee held its first meeting. This committee is charged with ensuring that no matter what county you are in or the money in your bank account, if you are accused of a crime, you can afford an attorney, a good one, with the time and resources and training and team available and at their disposal to give your innocence the representation it deserves. You know, Harrisburg is not the place where change comes easy. It's not a place where good things happen fast, and I will say getting to this point has been neither easy nor fast. Getting here required Herculean efforts from a couple people. I'd like to thank, even in their absence for some, Representative Natalie Mihalik, Chairman Tim Briggs. It's required Herculean efforts from Greg Rowe and Fred Cabell and Lisette McCormick in her retirement. Veronica Miller has been tremendous within Senator Hughes' office, and certainly Vicki Wilkin. Senator Baker, my speaker, McClinton, thank you so much. And to even the late Senator Stuart Greenleaf for helping to make sure that this has bipartisan support. It's been meaningful. I will say now, though, that this is closing the door on chapter 1. As the guy next to me would say periodically, you know, his faith teaches him that you are not required to finish the work, nor are you free from getting involved in it, from refraining. What is it?
I missed it.
From it. You're right there. You're on. You're good. Right there. You better get that right.
You're basically a Jew.
Basically right. Basically right. This is our work. This was our burden legislatively to get to this point. But now it's a passing of the baton to an amazing group of jurists and attorneys, an amazing group of advocates and law enforcement and folks who are dedicated to our community's safety. I know how big this commission is, the committee, so I do not envy the chair's role in trying to shepherd decisions through such a Herculean and just gigantic commission. But it's that big because there are so many really important and critical perspectives to how we define adequate representation of those who need us most. It is fundamental, and we don't yet have that answer in every county in Pennsylvania. So to those who are serving, to those who have accepted that call that you got from whomever, may have been the governor, may have been your leaders in each chamber, I thank you in advance for the time, sweat, and tears that you guys are going to put into this work. I thank you in advance for always laying at your feet the ego so that we can, in your heads, have that really spirited debate. Because that's what you will get out of this commission, I know, I promise. And through it all, Pennsylvania, every last resident, 13 million folks are going to benefit from the work that you all will do. It doesn't come easy, it doesn't come fast. But it's your work to do now, and thank you so much for stepping into this. To the leadership, thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. I just would like to briefly acknowledge all the members from the Pennsylvania House Democratic Caucus. You just heard from our Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus Chair, Napoleon Nelson. We're joined by the Latino Caucus Chair, Representative Burgos. We're also joined by Representatives Scott, Pielli, Madsen, Fleming, and the whip of our caucus. I had not forgotten about my public defender friend. Everybody relax. All the way from Allegheny County, Representative Dan Miller. We're proud to be here, and although small in number today as we're not here for voting session, this has been a priority for some time. 4 sessions ago, I introduced a bill on this very issue because it was rather embarrassing as a former public defender to now be a part of the august body of the General Assembly and not do anything significant about us lacking public defense. And although it took several years, I'm so very grateful that we're standing with Governor Josh Shapiro, who took this on to make it a priority, and it's fitting that we take a moment to applaud and thank him. After my bill didn't move my first 2 sessions, I gave it to a first-term member in Montgomery County, Representative Nelson. And as you can see, he took the ball and ran with it. It's very important that we fund public defense. We are currently in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania spending $3 billion to incarcerate people. And for the first time ever, we're spending $7.5 million to appropriately provide a constitutional protection. A constitutional protection that 60 years ago was decided after someone was sent to jail without representation. How could something like that happen in our nation? And how could, in the birthplace of democracy, we not be on the list with so many other states to ensure that we're guaranteeing the constitutional representation? But that is something of the past, because with this start of $7.5 million, we know we're going back to the budget table soon thereafter. And all the chief public defenders know that I'm ready to negotiate, because it's the one thing you learn how to do as defender wherever you practice. It is negotiate. It's interesting, Governor, you learn how to redefine wins. When I go to public schools and they ask me, how many cases did you win? I say, now what do you mean by a win? Because I understand win doesn't always mean one person standing up saying not guilty, but we won't go far off on the path. But to each of the defenders who are present, to the chief in Lancaster, Montgomery County, my hometown, Keisha Brooks Hudson, at the Defender Association of Philadelphia, of which I'm a proud alumna, glad to have started my legal career there in law school, glad to have walked in Sarah Jacobson's office in law school, a true law soul, having no idea what any day was going to ever hold for me in life. I'm fortunate for us to be here today because this is tremendous. When we talk about public safety, it's not only investing in law enforcement. It's not only in investigating and spending money in investigations. It is also in appropriately funding public defense, because what we can never afford is for even one wrongfully convicted person to spend a second of their lives behind bars. We should never allow that, especially not here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I am proud, as the leader in our caucus, to not only recognize that there are people who work in entities like public defense offices, there's also tremendous members of the private bar who spend a large part of their practice giving back to the community by being court-appointed counsel. And there is not sufficient appropriation for them either. So when it came down to choosing someone, considering all the public defenders in my network, I recognized it was a great opportunity to choose Kate Cacciamani from Montgomery County that I used to work with for a very long time, because Kate is one of those private practitioners who gives a contributing part of her community, gives a contribution to her community by providing free legal defense in Montgomery County, in Philadelphia County, and she's going to have a vital voice on that commission to be able to ensure that we spread the funds across as we get ready to go back and ask for some more, because we're not done fighting. So thank you all so very much. And with that, I'm proud to turn it over to a former member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, a history maker. It is Black History Month, our Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis. Please welcome him.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that great introduction, and thank you to everyone who's here today to highlight this very important initiative. I want to thank the legislators who are here today who helped make this happen, and the public defenders who work every single day to ensure that every single Pennsylvanian, no matter what they look like, where they come from, or how much money they make, has access to fair and equal representation here. As Lieutenant Governor, I'm proud to chair the Pennsylvania Board of Pardons, and with the partnership of the governor, we're working hard to ensure Pennsylvania is truly a place for second chances. We've streamlined our processes, and we've worked with legislators on both sides of the aisle to pass legislation to ensure that once your record is pardoned, your record is automatically expunged. And if you've turned your life around, you shouldn't have past mistakes holding you back. But those are second chances, and we want to make sure that Pennsylvania is a place for first chances. If you don't have adequate legal representation, you might not even get a first chance. Our system is set up with two opposing sides, arguing cases on their merits before a judge and a jury of our peers. But if you can't afford an attorney, that puts you at a significant disadvantage. And fortunately, our judicial system has recognized through important decisions like Gideon v. Wainwright that criminal defendants have a fundamental right to an attorney. However, in the case of indigent defendants, that expense falls to local communities, which can be a significant expense. And let's be clear, Pennsylvania's public defenders are working hard, but they are often underpaid and overburdened with huge caseloads, as we heard earlier. That's why it's important for the Commonwealth, for the first time, to step up and help shoulder this burden for our communities. so that every Pennsylvanian has a first chance at justice. I'm proud we were able to get this done in our first budget, and that we're proposing to do even more with the budget plan that the governor laid out last week. As the chairman of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, we've taken the first step today to start driving this funding out and help provide legal representation across our Commonwealth. This is just the first step of the barrier of the mountains we're going to build for indigent defense here in the Commonwealth, and to make sure every person has access to legal representation. It's my privilege to introduce my governing partner, the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Let me thank the Lieutenant Governor for his leadership on this and so many other issues. It's wonderful to be together with you today. And let me also acknowledge your incredible stewardship of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, one of the most important agencies here in the Commonwealth. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor Davis. And I'm thankful to be joined by so many members of the General Assembly here. Let me acknowledge two of our leaders, Madam Speaker McClinton, who you heard from a moment ago. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to all of your colleagues in the House. And Leader Costa from the Senate, we're grateful to you, Leader Costa. And my Jewish brother who chairs the Legislative Black Caucus, and my neighbor back home, Napoleon Nelson. I want you to know this up here and the work that is happening now by the Indigent Defense Advisory Committee. This is what good government looks like. This is what solving problems looks like. I want to thank all of the lawmakers who are here and those who couldn't be here for committing themselves to working in a bipartisan manner to get this done. You heard from Madam Speaker a moment ago. While I campaigned on this issue and I made a commitment that I would do something about it, it was Madam Speaker who had a bill on this 2 or 3 terms ago, who began pushing this rock uphill, and she understood that you've got to pull together a consensus. She did that hard work. Many stories of legislation that ultimately passes start with a lawmaker stepping up and beginning that process. And Madam Speaker, we are grateful to you that you began that process many years ago. I think it is also fitting to note that it wasn't until Representative McClinton became Speaker McClinton that this got done. This got done. Madam Speaker spoke with authority because this is something she lived as a public defender. And I'm grateful that we have members in the General Assembly like Representative Miller and Representative Pielli who also have lived experiences as public defenders. They know what people go through when they don't have adequate defense. They've also seen the other side of it, of what folks go through when they do have adequate defense. And so I want to thank them in particular for their work. And I want to thank, I joked with them before, but in all sincerity, the work that the Legislative Black Caucus did on this, putting its full weight and support behind this initiative, it mattered. And it was a key piece for us to be able to get this done. And so I'm grateful to you, to Representative Bullock, who chaired the caucus before you, and to all of the other leaders. I think what this also shows is that we can come together and get stuff done, right? We have seen this time and time again play out in just my first year as governor. Republicans and Democrats alike coming together to get this done. Unfortunately, Senator Baker is not here with us today, but she can share a story of bipartisan achievement as well, working with Senator Haywood, working with Leader Costa. It took Democrats and Republicans to get this done. I made a commitment we would get this done, and we got it done in just my first year as your governor. You know, our administration has broadly made it a priority to make our criminal justice system more fair and more just. Our system, you know, was built to be adversarial, professionally adversarial, but adversarial, to bring two sides together, to present arguments, to ask questions, to get to the truth, and then to allow judges and juries to dispense justice. As a former Attorney General, I saw firsthand how a functioning, professional, adversarial relationship in court can bring us closer to real justice. Some people were a little confused as Attorney General when I spoke about the need to invest in public defenders, and they said, well, why would you want that? Don't you want to go in and beat the other side? And Of course, when we brought a case, we would want to win, but we would understand that justice could really be done if you had a fair fight in that courtroom. And so, of course, you want your adversary in the courtroom to be well-resourced and well-prepared. Our system works best when both prosecutors and public defenders have adequate resources, when it is a fair fight. But for too long in Pennsylvania, that determination of a fair fight would often depend upon what your zip code was or what county that you lived in. Across our Commonwealth, 54% of criminal defendants are represented by public defenders. How those public defenders, though, depend on which of the 67 counties that you are in, and it varies widely. In some counties, practically nothing is spent on public defenders, and a lot of it is subject to the whims of the individual county commissioners. I recall, as a new county commissioner in Montgomery County, learning that our public defender's office was woefully under-resourced. In my first budget as a Montgomery County commissioner, we dramatically increased funding, and we continued that going forward. That was important in Montgomery County, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case everywhere. And furthermore, we were the only state in the nation the day I took office, one of only 2 states in the nation the day I took office, that didn't have their county share complemented by a state share. We provided absolutely nothing for indigent defense at the state level. The only other state to do that was South Dakota. Many counties wanted to spend more, as we did in Montgomery County, but couldn't afford to. Take Mifflin County as an example. 70% of criminal cases in Mifflin County involve a public defender. That's the third highest rate of all 67 counties. While I'm sure they'd like to do more, the Mifflin County commissioners don't have enough resources to increase their support for public defense. And prior to this state funding for indigent defense, as a result, in that county, they were spending just $3.25 per person in their public defender's office. Last year, we all came together in this bipartisan manner to lose that shameful distinction of being only one of 2 states in the nation to provide $0 for public defense at the state level. And for the first time, this Commonwealth delivered on that promise of real criminal justice reform, of real fairness in our criminal justice system, of the prospects of a real fight in an appropriate way in our courtroom. With the initial $7.5 million down payment, we lost that distinction of being one of the only 2 states that didn't provide state support, and we laid the foundation for even more investment going forward. We need to do more because the need is great. That's why I stood before you last week when I presented my budget and called for an additional $10 million investment for public defenders all across Pennsylvania. I want you to know I not only included it in my budget, I spoke about it in my budget address because I think this is such a fundamental issue to freedom and democracy, to making sure that there is fairness and real opportunity extended to all Pennsylvanians, no matter what they look like, where they come from, who they love, or who they pray to. Every single Pennsylvanian who enters into our criminal justice system has a constitutional right to adequate legal counsel. And we have now taken steps, and God willing, we'll take more steps to ensure that right is extended to all Pennsylvanians. We need to build on the bipartisan progress that we have made. And I'm confident that with this committee under the Lieutenant Governor's leadership at PCCD doing its hard work, and this group of lawmakers and many others who couldn't be here today, Republican and Democrat alike, that we will continue to make these critical investments. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania can't afford not to make these investments right now. Folks, we are sitting on a $14 billion budget surplus here in our state capital. It shouldn't be a badge of honor for any politicians to take more money from the good people of Pennsylvania than they need and then sit on the money here in some bank account when the need is so great across this Commonwealth. I've proposed that we spend $10 billion more on public defenders. And by the way, if the legislature were to come together and pass, I think I said billion.
Yeah.
I know.
They seem okay, Governor.
The public defenders there, they just cashed the check real quick. I misspoke. Obviously 10 million, but the point I was going to make is if you invest all of the different, if you support all the different investments that I've proposed in education, in public safety, in economic development, in justice initiatives like this one, if the legislature were to pass everything I propose, and obviously I know this is going to be a game of give and take, but just if they passed everything I proposed, we would still have an $11 billion surplus here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And by the way, we're cutting taxes, not raising them. This is a moment. This is a moment where we not only can afford to make important investments, we must make these investments now if we're going to build a more just, a more competitive, and a more accessible Pennsylvania for all. So I look forward to taking this spirit of bipartisanship that helped us get this across the finish line to fund public defenders across Pennsylvania and adopting that mindset all across our budget needs across Pennsylvania to get this done, working together to make progress, to move the ball down the field, and to continue to get stuff done for the good people of Pennsylvania. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. I want to spend some time with the PDs who are here, but the LG speaker and the rest of the speakers would be happy to take some questions here if you have any from the media. Okay, yes.
Governor Shapiro, thank you for holding a press conference and letting us ask some questions about this.
Sure.
I am curious, given your proposal this year, has gotten some pushback on the level of spending. How are you planning to balance that pushback with the absolute desperate need that these folks have talked about, this afternoon at their meeting? They have no one to deliver subpoenas. They are paying public defenders $35,000. You're kind of pulling different directions here. What is your vision for the future?
Well, we're going to, pardon me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to all come together. We're going to work together in a bipartisan way, and we're going to move the ball down the field just like we did in the last budget. In the last budget, we made historic investments in public education, universal free breakfast, money for mental health. We hired 400 new state troopers. We decoupled that line from our infrastructure line so we can invest more in infrastructure. We invested in economic development, and we got meaningful things done that hadn't been done before, like funding indigent defense. For all the talk, for all the noise, at the end of the day, we came together, Democrat and Republican alike, to move the ball down the field. And that's exactly what we're going to do again this time. I'm the only governor in the nation with a divided legislature, the House led by Speaker McClinton and the Democrats, the Senate led by Republicans. We are going to find common ground. Here's what I will say. I expect lawmakers of both parties to do their analysis over my priorities, but their analysis should not lead to paralysis. Now is the time to work. Now is the time to make investments. We can afford to make these investments because of the fiscal responsibility that's been demonstrated by both parties for many years. This is a moment where we need to make these critical investments. And as I said a moment ago, even if you were to adopt every single proposal that I put forth at the level of spending I proposed and the tax cuts that I proposed, we would still have $11 billion left at the end of the next fiscal year. This is a moment to make these investments. I am not okay being 49th in the nation in higher education. I am not okay being a governor of a system of K-12 education that is unconstitutional. I am not okay losing to our neighboring states on economic development because we refuse to invest. Now is the time to invest, and we're going to get it done.
Yeah, so I know that they're going to take the next few months in building that framework, and then I believe by June over the summer they're going to begin to drive out those funds. And I refer you to PCCD for specifics on that process, but we're going to try to drive these dollars out as quickly as we can.
Yes.
We have $70.5 million in this right now. You're hoping for another $10 million, but how
Yeah, look, the need is great, and obviously this commission is going to determine what the need is. I will tell you, even before they do their full analysis, it's more than $17.5 million. We know that we need more, and we know that it needs to be done on a sustained level. But here's the thing. We shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the possible. We got done a big thing last year in coming together to get this started. Now this commission is going to identify the need across the state. They'll drive this money out, and as more funding is needed, they'll come back to lawmakers and make that request. And I'm going to continue to be a champion for public defenders and a champion to address indigent defense here in the Commonwealth, as I know these leaders will as well. Great. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.